Django environment. Here we have a model where we'll be installing a field which handles languages. And here we have the Django Languages app, which you have downloaded. There's no need to install it. Right. I'm going to show you the fast way to do this. So, there are plenty of other options. I may mention them as we're carrying on. Here's paper. Let's open paper. Cheat. See, I just had tabs. And let's open the model. I've got this already set up because, as you know, Django migrations can be a little fretful, so we may as well have it up and running. Right, here's our model which declares various fields. Paper just has a simple title, a slogan, a summary. And some other things like creation date and a body and author and, you know, all the normal stuff you'd have. Important bit is here. We'd like to record what language the piece of paper was recorded with. We import a few things which you'll find in the README, and then we make up a language choices. This is substituting for the hard-coded choices you'll usually find in a Django field. Then we declare the field here, the language of the paper, and we say it's a special kind of field, it's a language field. There's a reason for this. There's two other ways of doing this which you'll find in the README, but we're taking the fast route. Within the language field we declare a language choices. Now, I'm a little sad about this. I'd like it to be the standard choices, but other similar applications take a route like this. We need to keep hard-coded choices around. To do that, it's not really possible to subvert the choices attribute, so you must declare language choices. I've just used a variable connection here, this uppercase language choices, so you could declare it straight onto here. But we declare language choices, we put it on there, and we've got a couple of other things around which I'll be explaining as we go along. Now then, let's see what comes of this. I'm assuming we've already migrated. Like I say, we've set things up to go. Let's just have a look at the output from the run server. It's just not working. Let's have a look at our run server. And we find it's just given an exception, improperly configured. A language choices option must be declared or passed as init parameter. You may complain at this point, but we did. We did. Here's our language choices. Here's our language choices option. What's the problem? I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is you haven't actually declared anything in the choices. Now, I do agree it can be real irritating when an application does this. It doesn't have a sensible default. But in this case, there really is no sensible default. I mean, what is your choice of languages? I'm just going to set something up straight away. I'm going to change this funny looking attribute pkin, which we will explain later, or I will explain later, we, I don't know who that is, me in my fed up with Linux Mint mode, could it be? Anyway, I'm just clearing this, and you see very clearly we've got 3 language codes declared. If you do anything like this, you'll probably recognize them. Let's just save that. We're now going to need a reboot. Let's just go for a forced reboot. This was a sort of settings level configuration failure, so we will have to reboot, and you'll find we've started. We did seem to have a server start. Right, let's go back to our output, and we seem to have something. Now, we don't have much around here because this is a demo. We do have the papers though, so let's go and have a look at the papers. Let's add a paper. And you'll find, there we go, we have our language field. Flicking back, the language field was declared here. And here indeed is the field. And more importantly, if I drop it down, we'll find we've got English, Middle English, and Old English as possibilities. If we go back to the model, you'll see we declared eng, and ang. So this is clearly linking up. Perhaps you didn't know that NM is 3-letter code for Middle English, but there you are, it is and it works. Well, there's a start. Now I'd just like to talk about the field itself before we go back to how we declare choices. You'll see that, like any Django choices field, you can set a blank. You can set blank to be true. That's a general option that applies most of the time. Well, it certainly applies to me some of the time. The point here is that we have automatically constructed our language choices. To provide a blank option, you would usually hard code some kind of blank entry here. So if we are automatically constructing our choices, we have no option for a blank entry. I've simply shortcutted this process. Is shortcutted a word? Anyway, here's the shortcut. You can declare a new attribute, blank label. So let's declare a label here. There we go, that's my new label. Save all that. And we'll see what options we are offered. There we go. New blank label, which will save blank in the database. Let's remove that. I'll just go backwards. This is the special language field we're working with here. You might like to remember. Which offers these extra options over a normal choices field. We have this other tasty looking affair here. Normally with Django, this would require declaring a completely new kind of field, but we do seem to simply have an attribute on this kind of field which lets us go multiple. So let's see what would happen there. Looking at the resulting form, we see that the field is rendered with the possibility of multiple language definitions. Now, how something can be in English and Old English at the same time, I really don't know, but perhaps ye old coffee shop is going to be the body of this text. So there we go. Those are the two special options you can use as part of language field: blank and multiple. Now we've covered the use of the language field, I think I'd like to leave that. I'll just point out there is one special field called language related field, which you'll find within the app, which delivers not a 3-letter code, but delivers the entire database, which we're going to come to. I'll also point out that language choices can just be inputted or used as a choices on a normal Django choices field, but then you'll lose the options of blank and multiple. Right, let's go to language choices, because English, Middle English and Old English are possibly not everyone's choices of languages you'd like to use. You may even feel hectored by the way I didn't provide a default. Let's see some further reasoning why I didn't provide a default. Let's go into Django languages. Now, Django languages uses and saves language in the ISO 639-3 set. This is quite contentious and it won't cover everybody's use cases. It won't cover the extended language codes used by locales, for example, but it does cover rather a lot of languages. These languages are actually pre-built into the app in a thing called a langbase. Just a quick look at this. Ready, these are the languages available and the codes I use. Even using the scroll, it's a little hard to see how much we've got here. In fact, I think the list sits at something like 7,500 languages at the moment. Moreover, Django languages keeps these as an in-memory database. You see there are various columns here, which are provided by the supplying committee, which tell you something about the languages. For example, some of these languages are regarded as general. If we skim down, well, let's go search for it. You see there's several forms of Chinese. Chinese, I think, is supposed to be a relatively coherent and stable language, and yet there are regional variants. This is interesting. Chinese itself is given a code here, which means macro language. In other words, calling a language Chinese could cover several other variants inside this list. So this is extra information here. Now the point is, although this isn't a proper database, in the sense you can do complex queries, what we can do, you'll have to look at the README to investigate this further. What we can do is we've uncovered this attribute on the language choices called type in. Now what this is doing is it's going to do a rather crude sort of query on the language base. But it's going to look for, I think it's this column, type of language. It's going to look for a quite interesting type, C, which is constructed languages. So this is like a database query, except it's happening simply on the in-memory code base. It's going to look for all constructed languages. If you're wondering what a constructed language is, well, I guess you're about to find out, because we've enabled it and it's part of the choices in our field. Let's go and have a look at what options we get. What we should have done is put a comma on. There we go. Now let's go and have a look. Gosh. What kind of things have we found? Well, we've found some languages that have some very, very strange names here. Dutton World Speed Words. Esperanto. Remember we said constructed languages. Klingon. All kinds of things have appeared now in our list. And remember, we did this on a query across a kind of in-memory database. It's crude, but it works. What's interesting is now that we can declare the languages in our piece of paper to be, for example, Old English, or in Klingon. I just have to say, if you have a website which covers both Klingon and Old English, I am going to visit your website, and moreover, I feel you should soar straight to the top of your Google ranking in category. Right, if you investigate the README, you'll see that there are various ways of doing queries in language choices to seek through the language choices, or you can just add a great big long list of codes to the PK in. I think it's possibly more clearer now why it's called PK. It is a primary key, in the sense that we use in a database, even though our database is in fact just in memory. Well, it gets cached actually. I'd just like to leave you with one final thought, because I've shown you how you can just list the languages, and I've shown you how you could actually query the database. But this is all quite tedious, and there are some presets built in to get you going, set up demos, or maybe act even as a base for sets of language choices. They are in here, if I remember. No, they're not. They are in... Sorry, it's a while since I've actually used this, because it's just simply up and running. Where are we? Ah, yeah, that makes sense. So, preset sets of languages. You have the official languages of the United Nations: Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, Spanish. You have some highly contentious lists. Have fun on Wikipedia here. Here are the ones where the most content has been posted on the internet. I don't know why that should hold appeal as a list of languages, but there you go. Here are the ones that some people feel get the most traffic on the internet. And here are the ones that approximate, I would point out, approximate to Django translated languages. It's actually quite a comprehensive list. And here's an interesting list, which is, well, it's certainly a better list in terms of verifiable compared to the internet most used. But here we have languages with the most speakers. It's quite a big list, actually, 100 items. Let's just import that language, one of those language sets, pre-made language sets. So we're going to rebuild our PK in, and we're going to say, instead of just building it all by hand, we are just going to borrow the internet most content set. Drop that in. This is going to show on the language field as a set of choices. Let's go and have a look. Well, there we are. A very nice list of languages. And you can, of course, set this app up to show whichever languages you like, and they will be saved in the database as 3-letter codes.